Hey, welcome. Welcome to Hired How to Get the Jobs weekly update. My name is Tony Martin. Today we'll be discussing a few things. We'll be discussing virtual career fairs. We will be discussing emotional intelligence interviewing and what's the real question behind the question. Far too often we start getting these questions that we don't understand the answers to and we don't know what they're getting at. But today we're going to discuss all of that. So hopefully that'll help you a little bit. And then as always, we'll take your Q&A. So as you listen to this, make sure you start thinking about any questions you might have, and we will get to your Q&A. I always shoot to get to Q&A at 2:15. I have a whole bunch of questions from my LinkedIn show yesterday, and I think we'll have a lot of good discussions either way. But with that, we'll first get right to career fairs. So let's talk a little bit about virtual career fairs. Now, if you don't know, I've talked about him numerous times. Andrew Seaman, he is an author at LinkedIn. He writes, he's part of the hashtag Get Hired. And he has a really, really good job of sharing with you, sharing with readers aggregated information from across the country. Because let's face it, when you work at the mothership like LinkedIn, you're going to have lots of information available to you. So he wrote an article recently from all these recruiters around the country, and they were talking about virtual career fairs as well as candidates' experiences with virtual career fairs. Because let's face it, the old style of a career fair where you go into a gymnasium or you go into the lobby of a hotel and there's 55 booths sitting there, is probably going to go away for a little bit of time. And if that does go away, then what do we expect from this brave new world of ours with virtual career fairs? And the truth is the spectrum is really different, okay? If you're doing a virtual career fair, you might just have a list of companies and you click on the company and there's a job posting. You might have a virtual career fair where you click on the company and there's actually somebody there chatting with you in the window, but the ranges are a lot different and you don't really know what to get out of these career fairs. So one quick tip for you, if you're trying to figure out how interactive this career fair is going to be, it's all about the registration process, okay? If you're registering for a online career fair, a virtual career fair, and they ask you certain things like what time will you be here, what companies are you trying to see, you know, what positions are you interested in. If you're doing things like that, well then guess what? That career fair is probably going to have a lot of interactive people on the other side in different booths, so to speak. So as you click on the company, you might get a chat window, you might be able to drop in and start talking to a recruiter. So the more complex the registrations process is, the more interactive the experience may be. But with that, people have gone to career fairs where it was supposed to be like that, whether it's in person or virtually, and guess what? The recruiter shows up, you hand him your resume, he takes your resume, he looks at it and he goes, thank you so much, he puts it on the pile, and you want to engage with that person, but they don't want to engage with you. What's going on with that? I'll tell you what's going on with that. Very often the recruiter goes there, especially junior recruiters, they'll go to career fairs with one thing in mind, meaning they were told by their boss, by their team, we need to hire mechanical engineers. So let's just say it's a college career fair. You show up, you're excited about talking to this company because you have them on your radar. You show up, you're not a mechanical engineer, you hand them your resume, and they seem to immediately disengage with you. I know that my sister used to do a lot of military hiring, and she used to hire Apache helicopter pilots. So that was her mission when she went to career fairs. Let me hire Apaches. I need to find helicopter pilots. So if you weren't a helicopter pilot, it's not that they don't want to talk to you, but sometimes they don't have the time to talk to you because they're trying to get to the mission, because they're going to be judged when they get back to the office of who they actually were able to talk to that fit the mission, not realizing sometimes that if they had just talked to you, you might have had a great referral that was going to meet their mission, or you might be great for the job tomorrow. Sometimes we as recruiters are a little bit short-sighted. We know the opportunity that we have today, and we know what we're trying to find today, but we might not have the foresight to focus on what we're looking for tomorrow. So whether it's virtual or online, that might be an indication. So, or virtual or in person. If you do an online interview or a virtual career fair, you might have the opportunity to start chatting with somebody and you realize they're disengaging with you, or you're asking a question and it takes them 5 minutes to answer. That might be a cue that you're just not what they're looking for. So with that, don't take it personal, but just realize that they kind of have a mission when it comes to these career fairs. So how can you be successful at a career fair, whether it's virtual or in person? First of all, do your homework, okay? Now, the one thing I like about the virtual career fair that makes your life a little bit easier is that you're going to have an opportunity to customize your resume perhaps a lot simpler than you would in a one-on-one. Meaning you can go on, so let's just say tomorrow there's a virtual career fair, Friday, June 26th. There's a virtual career fair. You can go on line in advance, see those companies there. You can then go to those companies' websites and see what jobs are posted, see which ones are a match for you. And then you could actually customize a resume for the jobs that's there. And then when you go show up tomorrow to the virtual career fair, you could have 5 or 6 folders on your desktop for company A, company B, company C, company D. And they all, I guess that would be 4, but you have 5, so you have to have company E, but for 5 different companies. And you could say, hey, look, I think you're looking for this current role right now. Here's my resume for that role. And you can actually seamlessly, easily give them the customized resume. Whereas if you show up to the career fair, it gets kind of cumbersome with multiple folders and multiple files. You're trying to figure out which file goes for which employer. So that might make your life a little easier. But no matter what, make sure you do your homework, okay? When you go to a career fair, honestly, recruiters love to talk. But if you want to make an impression, you want to be able to tell them about their company. You can't go up to a booth and say, hey, tell me about your company. You should go up to their booth and say, hey, I'm really excited about your company. I think you guys do this, this, and this, and I read your core values. How long have you been there? And engage them with what they've been doing, because we love talking about ourselves. But honestly, in a career fair, even though it's set up for you to learn about the company, the candidates that are really successful are actually educating the recruiters on what they know, so the recruiter doesn't feel like they have to start from scratch. It just shows that you're engaged and intrigued. So whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, a lot of the same rules apply. And truthfully too, even if the registration process is extremely long, there was another part of this article that was saying, hey, look, registration was long. I was expecting a great career fair, and I went in there, and for the companies I was excited about, nobody was at the booth. So there was nobody willing to talk to me. I think part of the problem is that we're figuring this thing out, right? I mean, we all think this pandemic happened a lifetime ago. It feels like we've been doing this for a lifetime, but truthfully, we've only been doing this for about 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 months at the most, depending on what part of the world you're in. We've been doing this isolation living. So companies are still figuring it out. They're figuring out how to recruit virtually. They're figuring out how much do we really invest in these virtual career fairs? Is it really worth our time? How many resources do we put on it? How many people do we put on it? Do we only put 1 person on it? Do we put 5 because they're at their computer and they're working or whatever, and they can handle it as a side task? I think in a lot of ways, people are just trying to figure this thing out. So I have no doubts that virtual career fairs will get better. And perhaps it might be the way that we move all these career fairs in the future. Nothing can take away the experience of seeing somebody one-on-one in a real environment. But truthfully, a virtual career fair can certainly do a lot to get your name into the organization if you present yourself well. So I hope that helps a little bit. Next, we're going to talk about EI interviewing, okay? And then we'll get to your Q&A. So if you do have any questions about career fairs or virtual career fairs, feel free, put them in the Q&A. I'll make sure I get to them when we get to them, or when I get to the Q&A. But then also any questions about anything on the interviewing process. But EI, if you've been following me on Instagram, you know that this week has been an EI week. Every week, every day, I've been giving a different emotional intelligence trait and several emotional intelligence questions, practice questions, but actual ones that I've used on candidates to display and to figure out if they have it. Today, we're using flexibility. So today we're talking a little bit about flexibility. I got some questions, you know, what's the toughest decision you've ever had to make professionally? How did you make it? That also kind of dives into problem solving, but EI questions, I've talked about this before, but I really want to follow up on one thing. But EI questions, for those of you who don't know who they are, emotional intelligence, okay? Behavioral based is often another phrase used for these, but the idea is that an EI job, an EI person can get the job, and then your IQ is what gets you to keep the job. So sometimes EI, though, is all about your emotional response to situations, okay? And very often when we get these questions, we don't really understand what the purpose of the question is. I'll give you a great example. So if I asked you, tell me about a time you said something you later regretted. Obviously, that's a tough question to answer. Now, I have a story about, I probably have a story once a week about something I later regretted because I lack a little something called self-control. Now, I've been blessed with a loving wife who gets over this and forgives me regularly. But the truth is that I'm getting better at it. But that question is all about self-control, saying something you later regretted. Why did you regret it? Why did you say it? And we get often when we hear that question as a candidate, we might get so focused on the question that we forget that the question is inherently made to make you feel bad, not really make you feel bad, but to make you answer something negative. It's like an entrapment question, right? Senator, how long have you been beating your wife? Well, with the presumption that you've actually been beating your wife, no matter how he answers that question, he's wrong or she's wrong. In this case, when did you say something you later regretted? I'm presuming you've done that once in your life. I've done that a dozen times in my life. So you have to answer that question with a very specific answer: circumstance, action, results. And when you answer that question, here's the point of this whole message. That question doesn't really matter, okay? Don't get hung up on the question, which is going to give you an opportunity to give the setting. The question that matters are the follow-up questions there to come that you are going to lead the interviewer down on the path of, okay? Because we understand, we've all said something we later regretted, but I'm going to ask you follow-up questions. So I have a good example, and I'll share that story. And I'm going to use fake names, but when I give this in my training, I just gave a training today to one of my corporate partners, and I trained 8 people on their team on EI and motivational interviewing, success factor interviewing to help them with their retention numbers. But while I was given that training, I gave them real names, but for this, I'll protect some names. So I used to work in a company, and I was fairly new in that company. And when I was fairly new in that company, my wife was 8.5 months pregnant. And if any of you have had kids or have kids, you know that when you're about to have a kid, that's all you can think about. This was going to be our first. So I go into the kitchen, I start making coffee at 7 in the morning, and Jane walks in, and Jane comes in and starts talking about buying a house. And I say, hey, congratulations, Jane, that's awesome. Well, the moment I say congratulations, Michelle walks by the kitchen and hears, oh, congratulations, and she walks in. And she goes, what are you congratulating her for? And I go, oh, you didn't know she's pregnant. Now, again, I don't know why I said that, because she wasn't pregnant and she wasn't a large girl. But for whatever reason, I just said it because I'm dumb, okay? And I lack self-control. And immediately when I said it, I regretted it and I wanted to take it back. And I tried to. I said, actually, Michelle, Jane isn't. And before I could get any further, Michelle made it worse by saying, Jane, I thought you were pregnant. Well, then I lost everything, okay? It was over from that point forward. But the bottom line is that I realized I made a mistake. That was a good example of a story of something I later regretted. Now, I have a whole bunch of follow-up with what I did to try to make it right. I don't have time for that right here. But if I was asked that question in an interview, I am sure as heck going to expect follow-up questions, okay? Like, for example, what was your relationship with Jane like prior to saying this? Why would I ask that question if I'm an interviewer? Because I want to know if you're a passive-aggressive person. Is this just something that was bubbling under the surface and you finally exploded with a way to kind of make fun of her and not really make fun of her and have plausible deniability that it was a mistake? How long did it take you to mend that relationship afterwards? Did it take me a week, a month, a day? Did I even try to make it better afterwards? Those kind of questions are the ones that really matter, okay? So when you get an emotional intelligence interview, listen to the question, give them the setting, give them your actions, give them the results of your actions. I didn't give you enough results in my answer. I would probably, as a recruiter, pull out more results to make sure that my answer was more comprehensive. But when that happens, be aware that whatever you've said, you've now opened Pandora's box for follow-up questions. And if you don't give the proper follow-up questions, then you're not necessarily setting yourself up for success, okay? I guess the other analogy I like to say is I like to use the car example. If I asked you, what do you do when you're driving down the road and you come to a yellow light? You'd say something like, well, usually I'd slow down, or I'd probably slow down, or I should slow down. Okay, I learned you know what to do. But now if I ask you what you actually did, you might say I sped up. Okay, now I know what you actually did. And I know what you actually did wasn't what you should do. But if I don't ask you any follow-up questions, I'm making some grave assumptions about why you did what you did. And that's the problem with our world in general right now, is we're all assuming way too much. And I think we need to ask some more questions and look and search for understanding and not search for judgment. But either way, sorry, I digress there. But what I mean by the whole asking more questions is, so you told me you went through the yellow light, and maybe you told me, yeah, today at 10 o'clock at this road and this road, I actually went through the yellow light and I didn't slow down. So if I don't ask you any follow-up questions, I'm assuming you're breaking the law. I'm assuming you don't care about being safe. But maybe my follow-up questions would be, well, why? And you'd say, well, actually, it was a right. I was making a right. And I knew if the light turned red, I was still making a legal right on red. And there, bottom line, it was going to work out just fine. There wasn't really a reason. I mean, I slowed down enough to make the turn, but I didn't slow down dramatically and stop. Or maybe there was an ambulance behind that person. And instead of slowing down, you actually sped up to get through the intersection so you could pull over and make a safe, legal pullover to let the ambulance by you. Maybe it was 4 in the morning and nobody was on the road, and you just know that that light is a 30-second yellow and you had plenty of time. Maybe you were only going 35 and the road's a 45, so you sped up to get to 45 and you got through the light with safety. Bottom line, there's lots of reasons, but if we don't ask those follow-up questions, we're never going to know. And if you as a candidate focus too much on that first negative question, you might never get a chance to get to the follow-up question. So you need to come up with examples. If you think interviewing EI questions might be a pitfall for you, be sure that you subscribe to my Instagram, because all this week I'm doing EI questions, practice questions, and I'm more than happy to share past information as well. So with that, please be on the lookout for that. Now it is time for our Q&A. But before I do the Q&A, please remember, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Hired How to Get the Job. If you like this content, I have, I think, 9 or 10 now 30-minute shows on there. Like I said yesterday, we now are on LinkedIn. My format's going to be LinkedIn will be probably Wednesdays at 10 a.m. And then Facebook will continue to be Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I really look forward to engaging and talking with you as the weeks and days to come. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, we will start off with the first question I got earlier this week. Actually, my wife actually got this question earlier this week. If you don't know, she's a VP of HR, very accomplished in her own right. And I would say probably much more accomplished than I am in my own right. But she had a question we were able to talk a little bit about. So Sarah in Spring was asking, how do I make my application for an internship more competitive? Now, this is a really big challenge, right? You're graduating college. You don't have much experience to draw back on. And there's a whole bunch of people that look and feel just like you who are also applying to these different internships around the country. So the first thing I'm going to say is, in general, it's not about you. It's about them. Okay? You need to take a look. You need to make sure you understand the company that you're applying for an internship in. You need to learn as much about the internship role as possible. There should be a job description or something. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's just you go into the college campus and on the wall, there's a list of internships for the summer and you don't know much more outside of that, but you can certainly go to their website, okay? The next thing I'd say is that your resume should be flavored for that company. Now, again, you're in a college student, you're not going to have necessarily that much experience to draw back on. So this is kind of where it's key for you. It's key for you to have a cover letter. And in that cover letter, again, it's all about the company. It's all about them and why you want to and are excited about working for them. Don't have your cover letter say, hey, my name is Sarah and I'm applying to be an intern at this because my college requires me or my program requires me to be an intern. So now you're not even going to want to work for me. Now you're required to work for me. You're going to be a delight. So first of all, don't say that. Say, I'm really excited about the opportunity to be an intern at your organization. I understand you guys do this. I think as you look at my resume, you'll see I've had an educational background in similar things. And I'm really excited about this, this, and this. And what those this, and this things should be, those things should be things they care about. Your bullets, you can put bullets on a cover letter. There's nothing wrong with that, but it needs to be stuff that the reader, the company, cares about. So each internship cover letter needs to be different, customized for that company. And again, a cover letter for an internship shouldn't be more than 3 paragraphs long, but it should be of substance. And the top and the bottom can be really the same. Who you are, why you're excited about that company, little flavor about them. Middle is the substance about the internship and why you're qualified for it. And then the third piece is, just I really look forward to talking to you type of thing. So you could probably keep that bottom paragraph relatively the same, but I hope that helps Sarah a little bit. I think it did earlier this week, but for anyone else who's currently going through that, I hope it helps. All right. being that there are no absolute statements. When should you focus on tasks versus focus on accomplishments in your resume? So this is a really good question, and it plays on 2 weeks ago on the Facebook show that I did when I said, look, if you're getting advice from a recruiter and they say absolute emphatic statements like you should never do this on your resume, or you should always do this when you're interviewing, I can probably think of a reason when always and never aren't the right answer. So when you do that, you realize that I can't say, like I usually do, you should always have accomplishments bullets. And now I can, because I'm saying that's an absolute statement. And then now I'm doing circular logic. And at the end of the day, what I'm going to say is most of the time you should do accomplishment bullets. But here's when you should do task-oriented bullets. My general feeling is it's 75% accomplishments, 25% tasks, because companies don't really care about you being busy. They care about you being successful. But you're brand new out of college. And I'm thinking of one of my clients recently. His name was Shiloh, and I got his permission to use his name. But Shiloh, phenomenal kid, super smart, graduating college or just graduated college. And for one summer, from June to August, he was a ranch hand. And one of his accomplishments was leading a team of like 7 people like him. So that's cool. But I asked him, give me some more accomplishments. He's like, well, I painted a 4-mile-long fence. I said, you painted a 4-mile-long fence. Okay. I think it's really cool, Shiloh, but unless you're hired at a paint company that's painting fences, they don't care. They can't relate to you painting a 4-mile fence. But what people can relate to is the fact that you were on your feet for 12 hours a day in the middle of Texas sun for 5 or 6 days a week. So it's showing character, it's showing your endurance, it's showing your tenacity, it's showing your ability to get through a problem like that. So in that scenario, so for new grads, I can really see how your tasks might be more impressive to a hiring manager than your actual accomplishments. So be thinking about what is going to be most impressive. And when you're brand new in your career, the things that are brand new in your career, you really want to try to focus on your your tasks if they can be relatable and transferable. So I hope that helped Shiloh. Now, Russ Roberts had a question. Where is the best places to look online to locate virtual career fairs and the best fit for your skills and interests? That's a great question. And I'm going to be the guy that says, Russ, I truly don't know that question right now. I mean, so you can always go on LinkedIn, right? Because LinkedIn's going to have different portals and different groups. So you should be joining these different groups and organizations that fit what you're looking for. And I'm hoping that those organizations would then be advertising things. You should certainly be looking at the companies that you're excited about, right? The companies you're excited about, typically companies are advertising their career fairs and things that they're part of because they want you to show up and come out to see them. So it's maybe not so much where are the career fairs being advertised, but take a look at those company press releases and those company websites. I'd also say that the career fairs that I've come across a lot recently are frankly churches and nonprofits and things like that. There's a lot of I would even start off with Texas Workforce if you live in Texas. Actually, I know, Russ, you do live in Texas, but Texas Workforce, they are going to probably have their fingers in the pulse of all these career fairs in the greater Texas, Houston area. So those little things will probably help you. I don't have anything more specific. I know Russ is a marketing genius and a PR. I can't think of the right word here, but just a phenomenal guy when it comes to those things. So I can't think of necessarily communications, PR, career fairs. But truthfully, too, most companies don't, unless a career fair is happening on a military base, most career fairs aren't exactly flavored around this or that. It's more of a, look, whoever's hosting the career fair understands that the population who lives in this area of the city has a lot of diverse backgrounds, and we need to hire and have as many or bring in, promote as many companies as we can, because we want to have as much diversity of opportunity as possible. So I hope that helps a little bit, Russ. Thanks so much. Again, if you have any more live questions, feel free to ask them. We'll pick them up right there. Next question was, so what are some unique questions that we might come across after this post-pandemic? So post-pandemic, what are some unique interview questions? Which is and I actually reflected on this because I happened to get this question, 2 weeks ago, and it came, and I just didn't have enough time to get to it during the live Q&A. So I was fortunate enough that I was able to really reflect on this. So I have 4 or 5 questions that I think will be relevant for you. And again, because we're doing EI discussions, these are going to be flavored around emotional intelligence answers. So be thinking about that too. So first question, what have you learned about yourself during the pandemic? Now, again, if you subscribe to my Instagram, you know all about these emotional intelligence traits. There's self-awareness, self-control, social skills, motivation, influencing others, empathy, flexibility, problem-solving, stress tolerance, and I can never get one of them. There's one more. And optimism. I got it. I know you're excited about that. I know you're hanging on for the 10th out of 10 EI trait. But when I ask you a question, what have you learned about yourself during this pandemic? That can be a self-awareness question. That can be a self-control question. Maybe you lack the ability to stay indoors and follow protocol. It can be a social skills question. Maybe you've learned that you value people and you need to be in an office environment because you're sick of working out of the house. Maybe it's an optimism question where the whole world is falling, the world's crashing down, but you're remaining optimistic and positive. Maybe it's a flexibility question. Hey, you lost your job. This happened, that happened. There's this one question, depending on the follow-ups and depending on how you lead me, if I'm asking you this question, can really be a whole bunch of possibilities. But that's a question I would think you would expect to hear post-pandemic. Next question, what do I expect to ask after a pandemic? What did you do to further your development? What did you do to further your developmental skills during the pandemic? So this again is a self-awareness question. You realize you have a gap. You want to address that gap. It's a problem-solving question, right? You got problem-solving issues. You want to make sure that you can become stronger at something. So you have to go to training. You have to do something to become better. This is what many of you are doing right now during this pandemic to answer that question. What are you doing? Well, look, I watched How to Get the Jobs, blogs. I read his blog, How to Get the Job. I go to his Facebook page, go to his YouTube channel. Little selfish plugs, I get it. But still, you go to all those things so you can better yourself as a candidate. So you can make your resume stronger because you realize that there's 40 million other people right now looking for a job in the US and you have to do your best to stand out. That's something you've done. But these are all questions about motivation as well. Did you just sit on the couch watching Netflix for the past 4 months, or did you actually do something? Did you just collect unemployment? And I don't mean that you can't collect unemployment, but is that all you did? Or did you actually try to get a job while you were collecting unemployment? There's lots of answers that can help me as a recruiter kind of figure out who you are and what pushes you and makes you tick. Another question that I would expect you to hear post-pandemic is, do you have any issues doing this job from home? As I've always said, answer yes or no questions, lead with yes, lead with no, and then give your supporting information in the back. So, will you have any issues doing this job from home? No, I will not have any issues doing this job from home for the past 5 months. My wife and I, we've really figured out a good routine, blah, 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 blah. Don't say, well, my wife and I have got a pretty good routine. We do have 2 kids. I think we should be able to manage that. But yeah, no, I don't think I'll have a problem with it. Dude, start with the confident answer, yes or no. Another question, yes or no, that I think you could expect after the pandemic. Are you willing to work from the office when the coast is clear? Yes, absolutely. I'm excited to get back to the office. I'll be 40 tomorrow. This is my personal case, and I've actually joked with my wife that if I was going to get COVID, I need to get it today or yesterday because all the stats seem to be 40 and under, or it should be 39 and under, and 40 and above is the higher risk. So, but with that, point being, answer with the yes and give the follow-up. Another question I could see is, what solutions did you come up with to overcome circumstances you faced or are still facing? Now, this is a really important question. And again, if you have any live questions, I'll take any live questions, but this is what I'm going to end on for today because it's a really important question I want you to listen to. What am I asking? What solutions have you overcome to the circumstances you faced or are facing? You can answer this question so many ways. First of all, I have essentially just asked you, potentially, do you or anyone you know or in your family have COVID-19 without asking or violating any HIPAA things? Because I guarantee if the thing you are trying to overcome or if you've had COVID-19, that is probably going to be the most stressful thing you've had to overcome, or if your spouse does, or God forbid, your kids do, or somebody, that's probably going to be the #1 thing that pops to your mind. And because I asked you a question very vaguely flavored, if you say I had COVID-19 or I'm suffering from COVID-19 or whatever, You volunteered that information. And now I have a window into, well, hopefully you're immune now, and now you're not no longer at risk. But there's lots of things there that I could go with for that answer. But you could also answer it, well, look, frankly, the biggest thing I had to overcome was the fact that I was bored, or the fact that I lost my job, or whatever. But just realize that, again, that question is so vague, and I wrote it and created it on purpose to be really vague, because as I was reflecting on that question, I was thinking, yeah, whatever's the biggest impact in your life is the thing you're going to talk about. And if you've had this thing, this disease, then that's what you're going to talk about. So realize that, remember, like with everything, when it comes to interviewing, you control the narrative, right? You control what, where the interview has to go because of the information you provide. They don't have to get too in depth with you. They don't have to get into the weeds with you. But if you bring them there, a trained interviewer is going to be there and figure it out pretty quickly. So with that, I hope you enjoyed what you just heard as we covered virtual career fairs. We covered EI interviewing and a few questions. And thanks, Russ, again, for your live question. As always, if you like this, please like my Facebook page, Hired How to Get the Job. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Hired How to Get the Job on the Chiron on the bottom of the screen here. And lastly, if you are currently looking for a job or you know someone who's looking for a job, introduce me to them. Let me help you or help them show you how to get the job. Hope you're doing well. I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.